All right. Next thing that people ask tons of questions about religion. This college needs to offer more classes on religion because all my students in astronomy classes, nothing people seem to ask more questions about than religion. What do religions say on the topic of aliens? Again, I got some interesting questions on that. It was interesting, for example, that some students say, well, religions all believe that Earth is the only world that was made just for humans. The whole universe was made for humans. Well, now wait a minute. We just are reading about this stuff in the book, and we're reading about Tempier and people like that who on religious grounds are saying, no, this can't be the only world, okay? If God wanted to make more worlds, God could make more worlds, okay? So the idea that religious people think that there can only be this Earth, it goes exactly against everything we just learned, okay? So first of all, there are people who, over history who have said that this can be the only world from a religious standpoint. But then again, Aristotle said this can be the only world based on his scientific standpoint, on his conception of the universe. Okay, so the idea that this could be the only world, or that we're the only intelligent beings in the universe comes, I'm sure you can find religious people who say that. You can also find Aristotle, and who says that. So we have. I'm not sure I understand why people tend to ask that question, especially given Aristotle and Tempier and all these folks who are busy thinking about how there could be other worlds because God could make other worlds if God wanted to do so. There were a number of questions related to this that I'm not going to try to get into because I don't know the answers to them, and it doesn't really have to do with class, but I do want to mention one that I particularly thought was interesting. Was someone said, if there were space aliens, would they go to heaven or would they have their own God? And like I said, I'm only mentioning that because it was interesting. That is not the subject of this class. Somebody asked if Tempier believed that there would be life on these other worlds. That if based on his condemnation, the idea that there would be only one world. And I think, their whole idea was that God could do anything, and so therefore there could be other worlds. And if God could make other worlds, God could put beings on those worlds as well. So yes, we could. I think that Tempier would say, yeah, you could have life on other worlds. A little bit more practical questions. Someone said, so what are Mars's polar caps made out of anyway? Mars has polar caps. So what are they? If they're not made out of ice, what are they? Well, they're not made out of water ice. They're made out of frozen carbon dioxide or dry ice. You can go buy dry ice at the grocery store. Then usually it's in that big square vat up near the front, and you put it in your cooler. It's frozen carbon dioxide. Its temperature is much lower than water ice, and it doesn't melt. It just turns into gas. People use that stuff at Halloween. They make punch and drop it in there, and it sits there and bubbles and it gives off a fog and stuff like that. That's dry ice. That's what Mars's polar caps are made of. Mars is very, very cold. We have to emphasize how right Wallace was. Okay, every other place in the solar system that you would go to, let's say that take where you are now, and then we teleport you to your choice of spots in the solar system. You're dead. Okay, every place in the solar system just stinks as a place to live. Okay, you will not survive. Mars is maybe the most survivable place, so you might actually get to live 30 seconds or a couple minutes in misery, and briefly. Most other places, you're just going to be toasted or frozen or starved for air or ripped apart by 1,000-mile-an-hour winds or something like that immediately. Earth is truly the garden spot of the solar system. All these ideas about how other planets were like Earth, well, they are like Earth in that they have gravity and they have moons and things like that, but they're not that like Earth. Okay, they're the only places to have water, for example, and to have life like us, to have beings like us. We have a lot of water in us, so you have to be able to have. If it's too cold to have liquid water, you can't have creatures like us. If it's too warm to have liquid water, if it's boiling, you're not going to have creatures like us. Somebody could say, well, maybe you could have some other kind of creature. We'll get to that in the next class. Okay. I think that this hits most of the questions that, oh, someone said, what other worlds have we visited? Okay. Human beings have been on the Earth, and then a small handful have been on the moon. We have sent robots to land on Mars and on Titan, which is a moon that's going around Saturn. We have landed robots on, the Russians landed robots on Venus back in the 70s. Venus is a nasty, 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 nasty place. You go Google, like, what's the surface conditions on Venus? It's like, 900 degrees, wind, rains acid. It sucks. Venus is hell. And so it's really hard to keep even a robot functioning on Venus. And we've had things fly past pretty much all the planets, even Pluto, quite a few asteroids. I think we've put a rover land on an asteroid, but only within our solar system. We have not gotten outside of our solar system, and humans have not been anywhere except Earth or the moon. That's because, of course, the distance, the moon is close by, right? If this is Earth, the moon's like here. So here's Earth, here's the moon. Now, where's Mars? Mars is, out in the parking lot. Okay, the distance from Mars versus the moon is very, very large. Okay, so we've only been to stuff in our solar system. We've only personally been on the Earth and the moon. We've only had rovers driving around on Mars. A couple of things have touched on the asteroids, mostly the things that have like flown by and orbit of Titan. So, very, very, very limited in what we've directly looked at. The moon, of course, is the thing that we would have known the most about for the longest time because it is so close. So you can look at it with a good telescope and you can just see before too long, once you start studying it, no, it's not really like Earth. Okay, you can see there's no clouds, there's no sign of air, there's no sign of weather taking place or stuff like that. So the moon being close would be the first thing that people were able to look at carefully, you get enough data to be able to have some idea that whether there was life on it. Okay, well, I hope that if this didn't get your questions, I'm sorry, but I don't like to let this run more than 45 minutes because I think everybody would get sick of looking at me. I would get sick of looking at me. Next week, the subject is Santa Claus.